and welcome to Recall the Midwife. We are three super fans who love Call the Midwife, talk about it, and just listen along. So, we actually are starting something a bit different. So, today we're going to do the Farewell to the East End book review. But first, we've got a very special guest with us.
The most special guest.
Most special guest. My 6-year-old daughter, Bob. Say hello.
Hello.
And what are we trying today, Bobs?
Peanut butter and honey sandwiches.
Yeah, so we're going to try this first. Now, Bob's is a little bit under the weather today as well, so you've done really well to go on this today, Bobs. Well done.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, shall we try the listener-recommended peanut butter and honey sandwich?
Let's go for it.
Oh, Mummy didn't cut yours very well, did she?
Oh, I like this. We didn't introduce ourselves, but everyone knows who we are.
Oh, yeah, I'm Alex.
I'm Jen.
I'm Becky.
I know you.
I'm Bobs.
What do you think, Bob?
Good.
Good. Do you like it as much as the Fluffernutter? No?
Yeah. Bob's, the Fluffernutter is unrivaled, so I'm with you on that one. I love this, but
Do you like it as much as peanut butter and jam?
Actually, yeah, Bob's, what do you think? Do you like it more than peanut butter and jelly or less? Or where do you rank them?
I rate this 8 out of 10.
8
Oh,
out of
8 out of 10.
Is a Fluffernutter 10 out of 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves a Fluffernutter. We haven't done it since, but she keeps asking.
Oh man. And then what ranking would you give to a peanut butter and jelly? Out of 10.
10.
A 10 out of 10 also.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Okay.
So Fluffernutter wins, in your opinion?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've done the wrong kind of honey because I've put quite a lot of peanut butter. I made both of our sandwiches, but we're on like a bit toasted. But the honey is a really runny one, so I don't know if it's like not enough in ratio. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you think you put too much honey?
No, not enough.
Not enough. Oh, see, I was making this really fast and I just went blah and like I poured the honey on. And so I did quite a bit, like kind of unintentionally. And
well, our honey's really, really runny, so it's just going to go all over the place. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I've got crunchy peanut butter.
Oh, nice.
My honey is from my sister-in-law's mum has got bees.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I'm very jealous of that.
What?
You know,
she has a hive that
bees. Bees.
People keep bees. They're called beekeepers.
Bees.
Bees. Buzzy bees.
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 Yeah.
And then you make them a little house and then they grow the hive, the honeycomb.
Wouldn't that do the honey?
Yeah.
They make the honey.
So Becky's basically got the most bougie honey and peanut butter going. What do you think, Bex?
You like this, right?
Yeah, I do like this.
You were saying that if you had peanut butter in your house, you just eat it all, right?
Controversial opinion. I prefer this to peanut butter and jam.
I do too.
A jelly.
I don't prefer this to peanut butter and jam.
You wrong, Bubs.
It's to me, peanut butter and honey is very easy to eat. But I'm going to always have the nostalgia factor of PB&J from my childhood.
So I don't think they're easy to eat at all. I find them very cloying. I find them so rich. I find them so sweet. It's just a bit too much. All these sweet sandwiches. I know you could eat them all day long, couldn't you, mate?
I can.
Tell them how much Easter eggs you've had today.
How many Easter eggs?
2.
2 massive Easter eggs she's had today.
Wow.
And one had a toy Ariel inside.
Ooh.
It did. It was a giant Kinder Egg one, wasn't it?
So when you say 2, you mean you've eaten the whole chocolate egg?
Well, Mummy and Daddy helped.
Okay.
Only a little bit, though, to be fair.
I ate most of it.
You did. So what do you think, Bobs? Would you have that again? You need to talk on a podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I would
just
do?
Nod your head.
I didn't do it this time because I didn't have enough time, but I think I'd like this better if it was toasted bread.
Yeah, well, we did toasted bread. Because our bread, you know, when it's about to be on the turn, so you think, oh, it'll be a bit bleh.
And I had mine on crusty bread, and that was good.
Oh, you had right bougie one. You could open a cafe and people would be happy with that one.
Well, it wasn't fresh crusty bread; it was a par-baked roll.
That's still nice.
Yeah, but Beck, you could charge like £4 for that one slice and be like, oh,
yeah,
you know, organic
bougie cafe,
artisanal.
What was that face, Bobs?
You know.
Right, Bobs, you could now finish. Thank you so much for participating in our taste test.
Say bye to the listeners, Bobs.
Bye.
Till next time, Bobs. We'll have you back.
Do I close the laptop?
Close the laptop and take it through to Daddy now. Right, ladies. After that excitement, are we ready for Farewell to the East End? Oh,
Listeners, it's all going downhill from here.
it really is.
Get ready.
Can we just talk about the fact that it's dedicated to Cynthia for a lifetime of friendship?
I know.
I know.
Well, okay, so now that we've had our fun, welcome to the book club discussion of Farewell to the East End, the third book in Jennifer Worth's series about her real life experiences being a midwife in Poplar in the 1950s and 60s. We've already introduced ourselves. I'm just going to do a quick trigger warning, and I actually have been thinking about this because we've gotten a lot of wonderful listener feedback, but we've also had a lot of young listeners write in. And so I just want to say to everyone listening, but especially for some of our younger listeners, please be mindful before you dive into listening to this, because I usually try to do a little warning at the beginning of each episode, but this book, I mean, I know we've been kind of joking about it in our lead up, but this book discusses a lot of really, really serious topics. There's pregnancies that end, miscarriages, abortions, really traumatic births, really traumatic abortions, child abuse of all different kinds. I won't say more, but just, you know, that's in there. Families being separated, like real tragedy, like poverty at its most traumatic and intense level, and, you know, just death, dying, like a lot of really, really hard topics. So as usual, like we will try to really make this an episode that's really, you know, I really am hesitant to use the word fun, but like, you know, very listenable, like, and we'll try to make it relatable, and we will try to be as, you know, tactful and thoughtful with the themes that we're going to be discussing as possible and not go into, you know, really kind of unnecessary detail. But listeners, just take note, like this book and the topics we're going to discuss are really, really serious. And so if anybody just wants to maybe take a break on this one or listen to it in parts, or just say, you know, maybe like I'll listen to it down the line or whatever, if you know, again, you're on the younger side, just want to give a little thought.
I might take a break.
I was about to say I might take a break. Just
Well,
Jen talking on this podcast.
I mean, there were a couple of lines in here that I underlined and I was like, oh no. And it's just really, and actually I listened to the book, a little while ago, and yesterday I had my hard copy of the book because I wanted to prep for this episode. And so I literally just, you know, kind of skimmed through every page to, you know, take notes and, you know, underline and things like that and just remind myself of all the stories. And I think I actually, I don't mean this lightly, I think I kind of blocked a lot of stuff out because I was like, oh my God, this part, oh my God, that part, like it's tough stuff. So anyway, but I will say there's a lot of wonderful stuff in here too, and there's a lot of beautiful stories about the real life women that I really am excited to talk about, even though there's a lot of stuff that's tough intermixed with all of that. So we're going to do this in two parts, just to say we already know that. And girls, we haven't discussed in super detail kind of the structure we want to do, but I was just thinking we could kind of just start from the beginning and work our way. I don't know that
We trust you implicitly, Jen. We're always led by you on these ones.
Okay, so let's just do that, and then we'll just I'll just help pace ourselves, all right?
Okay.
So here we go. This is literally the intro to the book. In 1855, Queen Victoria wrote to her daughter Vicky, the Crown Princess of Prussia, who was expecting a baby. And now I'm sure all of our listeners know this, but Queen Victoria, I think she had 8 or 10 kids. So she had been around the block a few times with pregnancy and motherhood, okay? What you say about the pride of giving life to an immortal soul is very fine, but I own I cannot enter into all that. I think very much more of our being like a cow or a dog at such moments, when our poor nature becomes so very animal and unecstatic. So this is literally the Queen of England. This is literally, this woman was sitting on the throne for 60 years. She had access to everything. She had the most luxurious life in a lot of ways that anybody of her time had, and that is her take on this experience. So just to say, that says something about the tone, you know, that Jennifer Worth is kind of trying to get with here. So the beginning of the book, she talks about how, like, you know, she's like a lot of us do as we get older. You look back, how did I ever do it? How did I ever have the energy to accomplish blah, whatever it was? Well, in her case, it was
this podcast.
Exactly. In her case, it was like, you know, how did I ever have the energy to be a midwife in Poplar, you know, in this time period? Because she's like, we were biking everywhere. We were going out all the time, all hours of the night. We were going miles and miles every single day. We were in, you know, really, really tough part of town. She says, we took our lead from the sisters and feared nothing, not even getting our bikes out in the middle of the night and cycling alone through some of the toughest areas of London, which even the police patrolled in pairs, through unlit streets and alleyways, past bomb sites where the meth drinkers hung out, past the docks where all was silent at night but for creaks and moans as the ships stirred in their moorings, past the great river, dark and silent, past the brothels of Cable Street and the sinister pimps who controlled the area, into a small house or flat that was warm, bright, and expectant, awaiting the birth of a new baby. So listen, these women were alone when even adult men that were cops would never be by themselves.
Yeah, but they were left alone as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it was like when we were at university, like in terms of safety at night, it was the guys that were more at risk than girls because getting into
You
fights.
say that, but we used to,
No.
you say that, that's not true. Because we used to make sure we were walking together all the time. They used to be
All the
women-only
time.
buses. We'd be together all the time. Boys would be more likely to walk on their own.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, okay.
100%. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think we were way more at risk there.
Women always are. I know they're
always.
like, oh, men are more likely to be attacked for like mugged or whatever. Yeah, but they're normally on their own. Women are never on their own because women are very much trying not to be on their own because of situations like that.
Yeah, because we know exactly how dangerous it is for us. Yeah. So the first chapter, all the girls are sitting around. Fred tells the story of the riddle of the restaurant. Did you guys remember that story?
Yeah, but it was like this weird puzzle he did to them that they had no actual answer to.
It's
He was just playing tricks on them.
Yeah, it's one of these weird kind of like paradoxical math problems where
I paid 9 shillings for a meal, and you're like, right, I don't even know what a shilling is. So that's got me flummoxed already.
I know. I was totally lost there. And the way they set it up is that Fred's been in Nonna's house for a long, long time, and kind of he does this whenever a new group of midwives or young nurses shows up, and this is his kind of like rascally behavior. This was actually a nice chapter, I thought. At least it started off nice. It was kind of, lighthearted, and he's kind of joking around. But then this is actually, I think, something. So the dramatic turn in this chapter is when Cynthia gets lost and everyone has to go out looking for her.
Which did happen in the book.
It did. Wait, you mean in the show? You mean in the show?
I meant in the show, yeah.
When did she get lost?
She didn't get lost. You remember she went out and they were looking for her and she'd lost a nerve.
So in the show, Bex, remember when Cynthia's taking care of the baby and she goes back and the baby's passed away? And then the police investigate. They tie in her getting lost on the bike with that event, even though in the book they're not connected, but they roll it kind of into one.
But in the book, do you remember they sent her out too early and they sent her out to a birth and she just couldn't handle it and she left.
Yeah.
And then they were all looking for her everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember now. But what is the answer to the riddle?
There isn't one.
It doesn't have an answer.
I think the whole point is he's saying there's an answer, so he's making them all think of it. I hate it when people do stuff like that. To be honest, it's put me off Fred now. So I don't think there is an answer. I think it's one of these ones that's supposed to be like a brain teaser, but actually there is no answer.
Mm-hmm. So just for our listeners, really short summation. So there's 3 people who eat lunch at a restaurant and the bill comes to $30.
Say dollars. Just do it in dollars.
$30, okay? And so they each put in $10 and the waitress takes the money and goes to the cash register. Well, it turns out the meal doesn't cost $30, it costs $25. So the person at the cash register gives the waitress back $5, but in single units, like single dollar bills. And so she goes back to the table. She's pocketed $2 for herself, and then she hands $1 back to each person because she's like, oops, overcharged. So now each person is paid $9 for their meal, but the waitress got the rest. But 9 times 3 is
$27.
So the waitress should have gotten $3 as a tip, but she only got 2.
So where is the
dollar
extra
go? Well, this is the problem. But it's not. But this is one of those things where it's like it's a construct. It's like it's not real. It's not real math, really.
Have you ever seen anyone with that?
How is it not real maths?
Right. Have you ever seen that dairy milk bit where they get a dairy milk bar, right, and they cut it up and then they show you the bits they've cut up and then they remove it and then they make it look just like a dairy milk bar again, but there's a little bit left over it. And your mind's like, what? How has that even happened? I'll share that on our social media on this week. But honestly,
I've never seen that commercial, but yeah.
I'll show it you. It's not commercial. It's like one of these silly things that Fred's done, like a riddle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But so basically, all the girls have to go look for Cynthia.
Bex has gone to get a calculator.
Okay.
No, I've got a box of matches.
Oh, goodness.
I'm doing it now while you talk. Go on.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
So anyways, so she gets lost on the Blackwater Tunnel or whatever it is. And then she comes out the other side. Blackwall Tunnel. And then she comes out on the other side and
bless her, she got caught going through because obviously she's only on a little bicycle.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the
Oh,
shocking thing. She had to go back the same way she came because she was on the wrong side when she
I
came out on the.
know.
And so then by the time she gets back to Nanada's house, she's so traumatized. She's like shaking like a leaf. She's like, oh my God, I would have just been like, you know what? I'm out. Bye.
I
I'll
can't
see
even
you later.
imagine. Yeah, but I can't even imagine how terrifying it is. She didn't have a phone. We could have been like,
Nothing.
Uber it.
Nothing. I'm like, why couldn't she have got a taxi? Anything other than what she had to do. But then, Sister Julian is like, I don't even think it's legal that she's, motorbikes aren't even allowed to go in the tunnel and everything like that. And then, so anyway, so that was, it was an okay intro chapter, but whatever. So that's that chapter. Next, the chapter. Now, the chapter is called Trust a Sailor. So this chapter is about Kathy, who is this young Irish woman who gets connected to novice Ruth. I think in the book, novice Ruth is meant to be the Sister Sheila character, like Sister Bernadette, who then becomes Sheila in real life, don't you think?
No, because they talk about Sister Bernadette as well. I thought novice Ruth was more like Sister Francis.
Oh, I thought she was Sister Winifred.
Oh.
Winifred totally does make more sense than Francis.
Huh. I guess just because of the way. Okay, so here's how Jennifer Worth describes.
Oh, hang on.
Novice
Actually,
Ruth.
sorry, just to say, Sister Francis is a novice, though, isn't she?
Oh, she is. That's right.
So actually, Winifred isn't Winnie. Look at me being on first name terms with her. Sister Winifred isn't. So I think it is on Sister Francis.
It might just be one of those characters that like in the book, then Heidi Thomas was like, well, I'm going to make kind of an amalgamation. Because it's like not every character has exact parody in the show. But anyways, she says, Novice Ruth had the face of a Botticelli angel. None of the men of Poplar had courage to speak to her. They were so in awe of her beauty. She was about 25. She's like this really beautiful, cool lady. This is why I thought she was like Sheila, though, because she says, there was another side to Novice Ruth that I'm not sure anyone, apart from we girls, knew about. Certainly the people of Poplar never saw it, and I doubt if her older sisters did. She had a tendency to a giggly girlishness that was most unexpected and therefore all the more endearing. She would laugh at almost anything, and then she was always telling jokes, and she was a really good mimic, so she would like impersonate the different people in the house, and they always were just like laughing because she was so funny. Well, anyway, she gets called out at like 1:30 in the morning. An Irish woman is giving birth, Kathleen O'Brien, on the Isle of Dogs. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna come. So she goes there. It's and this in the book is the story of, remember when Chummy delivered the triplets, and
Kathy
then that was
Powell. It was Kathy Powell, and she was from Hull. She was from Yorkshire, and it was played by Sarah Lou from Coronation Street.
Yes, and this was at the moment in the story where Chummy and Peter were kind of having a crisis of faith of their relationship, basically.
This is basically what got them back together. She went in a mat naked, didn't she?
Yeah. Which is fascinating because this is, so the story of Chummy and Peter we're going to get to, which is later in the book, but actually... And that was also in the show, but it was totally different in the show versus in the book. So it was very, very cool to see. Yeah. But anyways, so she goes to Kathy. Go ahead.
I've got an update on the maths puzzle.
Go on.
There is no one. It doesn't make sense. There's 3. So where did the other one go? I don't understand.
Yeah, but I think that's the point. I don't think anyone ever will. You can think about it as much as you want.
But the thing is, Bex, it works in
Becky
both.
looks like she's going to cry.
The thing is, it works in reality in both directions, but it doesn't work when you explain it in tandem. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you pay $9 for a meal and then you tip someone the remainder of $30, then they would get a $3 tip. But if you pay $25 for a meal, or if you pay
30.
If you pay 30 and then give a $2 tip, then you all get whatever. I mean, it's just one of the. It's just one. This is why Fred was annoying, and even Sister Julian was like, "Not this one again. I'm so over it." Remember in the book she says,
"Do you know what? I hate maths so much, and I'm rubbish at it, that I've just not even worried about this because I thought I'll never get it, and I'm absolutely resigned to the fact." But if you're actually quite good at maths, this will probably send you mad. But because I know I'm rubbish, it's not bothered me. Whereas Becky's like really good at maths and is really annoyed by this.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, but I'm not good at maths. I mean, this is basic maths, though, Alex.
Well, I've still not even thought about it, Bex.
The thing is, here's my take, Bex. I literally listened to it. I was like, huh. Anyways, and then I just moved on. I was like, life is too short. Okay.
I didn't even say her. I was just like, la 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 la.
So, anyways, so Novice Ruth gets to Kathy. Now, Kathy is just like the lady in the show. She hooked up with a sailor once,
but she's Irish.
Right. She's Irish in the book, but she's like, my mom said never trust a sailor, but like he was so beautiful. He was so tall. He had these beautiful eyes. He like sweet talked me. Like we had a thing. He said he was gonna come back and take care of me, but then he left and like now I'm here and like I trust him, but at the same time I don't know. And like I'm gonna get ditched, but blah blah blah. So anyway, so she's having that whole narrative the whole time Novice Ruth is with her. Okay, Novice Ruth. This woman has had no prenatal care, so Novice Ruth knows nothing about what she's walking into. She literally goes into a tenement that has nothing. Like literally like you went
water.
Yeah, none of the utilities are turned on. This girl didn't even like quote live there before she got there. Like this is a bed and a room and that's it.
Also, let's be honest, right? We've all seen. Do you remember at uni, boys' rooms or whatever? They were the most disgusting.
Yeah, it's horrible.
This person's lived like they just live like animals.
I mean, talk about the most unsanitary, inappropriate place for babies to be born. I mean, it was horrible.
Also, there was literally nothing for the babies, and I thought that was an exaggeration in the show, but actually there was nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I really think that if Novice Ruth had had any time at all to deal with this, she would have been like, we're doing something else, but she had no time. I mean, Kathy was actively in this book. Quick side note, I will say I learned a lot about pregnancy and childbirth by reading this book. Like a lot of the actual medical like mechanics of it. Did I want that information? Not really.
No.
Did I need that information in my life? Again, not really. Do I have it now? And am I semi grateful that I thought it helped me to kind of understand it? I mean, I guess. But anyways, so you learn that there are 3 stages of labor. Kathy was in the 3rd stage when basically she got there. So it means the baby is coming. Like the baby is coming out of the body, okay? So she's got a huge belly. Novice Ruth delivers the baby. She's like, okay, great. What am I even going to put this baby in? She doesn't know. She finds something. She wraps the baby. She puts the baby in a drawer of a dresser. All right. Then she palpated the abdomen. Then she's like, oh, wait, hold up. Another baby's coming. Kathy's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Another baby? Wait, what? I have twins? Okay. The second baby comes. Novice Ruth is like, what am I
They're tiny as well.
Yeah, tiny. Novice Ruth is like, what am I going to do with this baby? Figure something out. Then she's like, well, I've got to deliver the afterbirth, but nothing's happening. Well, wait. Then the lights go out. Okay, so now not only does she have anything, but she literally can't see what she's doing at all. Which,
like, if anything, on the series, the chummy birth was like so much better than the actual birth that Novice Ruth went through.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, at this point, Kathy is so exhausted, she's passed out. She's gone, okay? Then I'm not even going to read it because it's so disgusting, but like basically... Okay, wait a minute. I will read it. Okay, sorry. The situation resolved itself. In her sleep, Kathy groaned in pain, and in the same instant, there was a click from the electric meter and the light went out. The room was in total darkness. Ruth knew the bicycle torch was on the chest of drawers, but trying to locate it, she knocked it on the floor and then had to crawl around trying to catch it. Blah, blah, blah. Ruth, okay. She could hear Kathy groaning and straining and pushing, but there was nothing she could do until she had light. She found the torch and switched it on. Kathy now lay calm and apparently asleep. Ruth went over to the bed and pulled back the linens. A baby lay in a pool of blank. You know what it is. The baby just fell out of this woman. Okay.
Yeah, it had been a well-trailed path by 2 of its predecessors, like 2 of its siblings about 10 minutes before.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Okay, Kathy's asleep. She wakes up. She's like, where are my babies? Ruth is like, hold up. You got 3 babies. She's like, what? So she freaks out. Anyways, Ruth is like, well, all right. So the other, blah, 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 blah. They deal with it. Then here's the end of the story for all of us. Did we want to know? Well, I cannot record a happy ending. Kathy was buoyant, cheerful, and resourceful, and we cannot be sure that life treated her harshly. But the thing is, in the preceding 2 paragraphs of that, Jennifer Worth is like, here's all the reasons why I think this mother and her 3 children probably were separated, sent to the workhouse, like shamed out of all of their social circles, who knows what. And then Jennifer Worth
in the show, she gets a happy ending, doesn't she? Because
he turns up. Yeah, in the show, the sailor comes back. They all love each other. It's all amazing and everything.
Well, do you know what? As well, I thought that this chapter had been turned into 2 storylines. So they've got the Kathy, I've forgotten the name. I've just claiming. Was it Kathy Powell, right? But hers was Kathy with a C. Kathy Powell. I remember it, Catherine. Whereas this one's like, is it Kathleen O'Brien or Catherine O'Brien?
Something like that. Yeah,
it's Kathleen, right? Now, Kathleen. I think they've got this Kathleen part of it from it because she says, when you got to Liverpool, how did you get to London? And do you remember Kathleen?
Yeah.
When she was saying about, how did you got that? I got a lift with an overnight lorry driver. I can't believe it. And she just couldn't believe it that she was in a different place. Do you remember Kathleen said that? She was like, she thought London was right, the other side. So I think they've merged 2 stories there as well.
Well, and that was also in the first book, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this again, she kind of amalgamated it all.
Yeah.
So then the next chapter is about Cynthia. Oh, girls, we just got to switch. We're just gonna have to skip over a lot of this. This is basically the story in the book, the real life story in the book of when in the show Cynthia went to a birth. She delivered the baby. The baby was totally fine, but then a few hours later she goes back and the baby has passed away.
Yeah.
And then they do a police investigation. They don't know why. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it at that because that's enough, okay? But then the chapter keeps going. Wait, so it's sad enough that this child has passed away, and it's no one's fault. It's a very, very tragic event that just happened, in this family's life. But then Cynthia did not come in for lunch. She'd been sent to bed with a couple of aspirins and some hot chocolate. Sister Julianne had said grace, and when we were seated, told everyone what had happened. Then Sister Monica Joan is like, "Oh, maybe they smothered the baby."
I know.
That's not funny.
It's not funny, but it's not funny, but then there's a whole there's pages and pages about smothering and why people smothered and why they couldn't keep the babies and what would happen to children in these terrible situations.
Just a quick side note on this chapter. There's a bit about Sister Bernadette and Jenny Lee. And Sister Bernadette, she was saying that she was a midwife whom I both respected and admired, but she could be very sharp. And she says, I just wanted to speak to you. Did I see you cycling with no hands down the East India Dock Road? I'm sure it was you. I can't think of any midwife who would cycle in a nonchalant fashion down the main road. And were you whistling by any chance? So Sister Bernadette was a right killjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible. And I mean, and the thing is, they just talk about it a lot, and I'm not going to read very much about it, but basically.
And Sister Bernadette, we're jumping ahead now, but I think now's the time to say it. At the end of the book, they say what happens to
everybody.
And Sister Bernadette was so outraged that women were allowed into the church.
I know.
She left the Anglican church.
I have to say, I had a real mixed feeling about Sister Bernadette in this book because she talked about her a lot more than I somehow remember her talking about Sister Bernadette in the first two books. And Sister
Bernadette is Sheila, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is really strange to me, how she's the one who's turned into the one. I feel like maybe they've done that to be like, women, you want to turn Catholic, we'll turn you into it. We'll turn you away from the church to marry a man.
But this is why I feel like Sister Bernadette and Novice Ruth are kind of Sheila's kind of an amalgam of both, because Sister Bernadette is really hard. Sheila and Sister Bernadette in the show are a lot like softer, younger, like more on it. You know what I mean? I just don't think it's as clearly like a 1-to-1. You know what I mean?
I think Sister Frances and Sister Winifred are thrown in there as well.
Yeah. But just one quick last thing on the smothering, and I do not in any way make light of this, but this is really, really serious. So
and I didn't mean to laugh earlier.
Oh, and you
just laughed because it was just a ridiculously harsh thing that was just
and I mean. And that's the thing. It's kind of like, bam, here you go. But the girls that's sitting around the table, they're all absolutely so shocked by this. Like, they're horrified to hear this. And then they're like, how? Why could this happen? Poverty, grinding, abject poverty with no end. And then she goes off. And that is kind of just one of the biggest themes of this book over. The tragedy and horror of the poverty in this time period. I'll just say that.
So true.
Okay, so we're back in. So next chapter, we're in the midst of the abyss again. This is Lost Babies. So the first line is,
title of it, Lost Babies, it's not going to be good, is it?
No, it's terrible. So basically, this chapter is about how could a baby be born and then disappear? Well, I'll tell you why. Because basically, so the hallmark of any civilized society is record keeping, or, some kind of historical record. And what Jennifer Worth says in this is that family births have always been recorded in parish registers, but this was not obligatory. Since 1837, parents have been required to register a birth with the General Registrar Office, and this is in the UK, obviously, but, many countries like this. But then it wasn't really enforced until way later on. Then, and also this goes in tandem with the fact that the first Midwives Act was passed in 1902. Also, infant mortality was like really astronomical in like these older times, older generations and everything. I'm not even going to say because the statistics are just so grim. But basically, prior to the Midwife Act, almost anyone who decided they wanted to be could kind of get into that quote business. So they had women that could call themselves a midwife, go around delivering babies for a fee. These women could also be called a quote handy woman in many communities. She had many roles, dwelled in the shadowland of respectability and the law. Like, I mean, it's just basically the Wild West, okay? Like, and during this time. So then She says illegitimacy was the main reason for hiding a birth. Young people today cannot imagine the disgrace that was once attached to a birth out of wedlock. So then, like all the situations that would cause illegitimate birth, someone not to want to keep a baby. If you were really, really poor, your options for going forward, if you had an illegitimate pregnancy or birth, were like really, really bad. She says the upper classes, aristocracy, and royalty were particularly fearful of the stigma of a. Oh, and then it talks about how a disabled child being born was also like a huge tragedy and like terrible thing. There was a terrible stigma against it, which is really painful and horrible to think about. So stigma of a disabled child in the family could lead to ostracism because of so-called tainted blood. And just another, that's a terrible
also just
term.
a baby that was a baby, the dead baby, like not even trying to make a dead baby, but a baby who was born dead. And they're saying that a reason for burial cost loads of money, and there was such shame in a pauper's grave that they tried to get rid of babies that way, so they didn't have to have a pauper's grave, like it wouldn't even be registered. It's just absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, so basically what it boils down to is that you either have a situation where the babies are not, again, this is a terrible term and I'm so sorry, but the babies were smothered or disposed of in some horrible way, or they were abandoned, like just wholesale abandoned. So then she goes on a huge long story about abandoned babies, which is just horrible. Not even going to talk about that.
There's quite a nice story about her friend, a lady from Manchester, who was found on her doorstep, and she was taken in and fostered by the people who found her for like her whole life.
I heard a story once about this guy who found a baby on the subway in New York.
Oh, really? When was this?
And this was years ago. He fostered and adopted that baby.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank God. Okay, and then just in the midst of this, again, so great. Then Jennifer Worth says, history is full of grim realities. Well, okay, don't have to tell me twice. But then she goes, it also must be remembered that domestic violence was an accepted part of life in some families. Women and children expected to be beaten up, and in such a scene, a misdirected blow could easily kill a baby. Okay, well that.
Yeah, but then she also goes to say, if such a thing happened, the mother would have done everything possible to conceal the death. And if the baby was unregistered, she would probably get away with it. So it's like they're saying they're preempting it.
Yeah. And then she talks about child trafficking for a while, which I literally am not going to say one more word on. But here's the thing.
Oh, so dark.
It was horrible. It was, I mean, truly, like, it's the stuff of nightmares. It's absolutely the stuff. I literally wrote the stuff of nightmares in my book right there. You both can see for real. Then at the end of this chapter, she goes, this must make terrible reading for anyone who is seriously studying family history. But life is made of happiness and tragedy in equal proportions, and we will never change that. Jennifer Worth, be freaking for real. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with this? Like, this is where like all of my comments like the past 17 weeks when we've been leading up to this books have come from, because I just was like, you are so, like, she's true. Like, I'm not arguing with the reality that she's outlining here, but are you kidding me? I wanted to throw this book so many times. I was just like, what's the point of us? What's the point of human beings? Like, truly, why are we even bothering with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a hard read, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Okay. Here, okay, now we get to go to a happy story. Quote, happy story. The one about the late. Now, this was actually in the story in the show. It was right at the beginning of the first season. Do you guys know which story I'm talking about?
Soot.
When
the chimney fell in and the baby, I thought the baby had died in that scene, but they were all laughing, and apparently it was fine.
Well, do you guys want to talk about this chapter so that I can? I feel like I'm monopolizing conversations.
I'm more than happy for you to monopolize it. I hate a book review one because I get dead nervous.
Well, basically, what happens is Cynthia goes to this birth
in the TV show. By the way, it was Jenny.
And I think
it was one of Jenny's first with Sister Angelina. It was one of her first with Sister Angelina. Yeah.
And basically, and I will say the show did not really do this justice. Like this was a wild story. So basically, she shows up at the birth. The mother's in labor. She's got everything completely set up. Like she's literally just spent the whole. She's at the very end. She's like, okay, everything is totally ready. I'm literally gonna like pull the sheet up and like look at your, whatever, and then we're gonna give birth to this baby. In that moment, the chimney completely caves in, and like not the structure of the chimney, but like all of the ash and soot and everything, something disrupts it, and it all just completely goes down, and it like poof,
yeah,
into the room.
Just like in the show.
Yeah, and everything is covered with charcoal. Absolutely everything. And and it's just a nightmare. And so then basically Cynthia has to spend all this time trying to figure out.
It's even more carnage in the actual book than the show, because in the book all these little kids come in, jump on the bed to try and get like soot all over them.
Yeah.
They're all there with the woman falls off the bed with the baby still attached to her, and they're all there trying to get soot on this. Absolute card. Honestly, it's workable.
Yeah. I mean, although in the real story, Sister Evangelina shows up. She thinks it's hilarious. They do find a way to deliver the baby, but the baby and the placenta as a unit have to be removed from the room and taken to somewhere else so that it can be like cleaned. They can't cut the tube umbilical cord until they're in a sanitary. I mean, just it's quite a lighthearted story, but it's.
Although, get this, is it lighthearted for the grandmother? The job of cleaning up fell to the grandmother. It took her about 4 days, and she needed a holiday to recover.
Girls, look what I wrote in my book. Look what I wrote in my book.
Could never be me. I'd prefer to clean up soot than placenta.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I've solved the maths problem.
Bex.
I like the way Bex is quiet because she's not even thinking or listening. Go on.
So if they've each paid $9 for their meal, you have to just think about it the other way. So if they've each paid $9 for their meal, 9, 18, 27, the meal costs 25. And so there's 25 plus the $2 tip for the waitress. Solved.
I don't get it still. How does it cost 25 if they've each paid 9?
Oh, because I see what you're doing. So you're saying the meal costs 25 and then you give $2 to the waitress and then there's $3 left over to give back to each of the diners for their meal.
No, because if they just pay, when they get the dollar back, they say, oh, so effectively they've all paid $9.
Yeah.
So if you just say that they pay $9 to start with.
Yeah.
Then that's $27. The meal costs $25 and there's $2 for the waitress.
So they've had different things to each other.
What?
Well, 25 doesn't divide into 3.
No, but the 2 goes to the waitress.
Yeah, I know, but must have had
9, 18. We don't care what they've eaten, Alex.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is 25 doesn't divide by 3, so they must have
They've probably gone to a restaurant with you, Alex, because you always have about 3 drinks.
I love how you're worried about what they ordered off the menu as this.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is it's not dividable, so they can't have had the same thing because otherwise it would be the same amount and then it wouldn't be dividable by 3, whereas 25 is not dividable by 3.
They've all ordered different meals.
Yeah. Right, fine, thank you.
Okay. I think you're right. I agree. I'm with you.
Right,
okay.
I think we just skip the Nancy chapter.
Oh, horrific. Yeah. Let's do that. Oh, well, yeah. You know what? Honestly, let's just do it. So basically, I'm just going to sum up the Nancy chapter with
just
2 words. Surgical rape. Don't know what that is? You don't need to know. Don't find out. You don't want to know. And you don't want to know why we would know it. This chapter's horrible. Is it historically maybe important? And Jennifer Worth decided she wanted to tell us about it. Okay, fine. But it's terrible. Just imagine like another way that women were brutalized, and there you go. The only bright spot, I'll say this, was that she talked about Josephine Butler, who basically became a crusader for women's rights in like the late 1800s, and so she did a lot of good work for women. But God, this chapter
the way
was
the police
terrible.
And the surgeon did it together, though, to her.
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. So, anyways, just dear listeners, just know it's another story of like mass government-sanctioned sexual assault on women, and then eventually it did get repealed.
The
but
patriarchy always being a zero,
and just the violence against women that is so perpetrated as a feature of our society. Okay, now let's move on to Meg and Maeve.
Hooray!
Now this story also really annoyed the bleep out of me, but I'll just say one thing that absolutely like twisted my brain in half. Okay, when we watched the show and it was like Meg and Maeve, okay, I'm thinking Meg, one name, and the word and another word, and then Maeve, Mave, Maeve, however you want to say it. No, that's not how it is. The girls' names are literally Megan.
Well, no, I don't think they are. I think
Maeve.
that's what the midwives and everything called them, because they were literally so inseparable. I think that's the whole point they're trying to portray.
Oh.
I think it would be Meg and Margaret and Maeve.
You mean like Margaret and Maeve?
Yeah.
And Maeve.
But because they're literally like a nickname, like you'd call them Meg and Maeve, because they're just always together.
But wait a minute, I thought, okay, but at the end of the chapter, I think they say something.
Here you go, listen. Meg and Maeve were married. It said that the banns had been read out on 3 successive Sundays for Margaret, spinster of this parish, but that Mavis had signed the register. So they were Margaret and Mavis. They just got called Meg and Maeve by them.
Oh, Maeve's our mum and Meg's our aunt. I'm not
So
spoiling anything, but I'm just saying, like, okay, so it is okay. So
They're Margaret and Mavis.
okay, so let's talk about this story. Tell the story.
In the show, they are very much. I mean, it is true. The real life story of this set of twins was that Maeve was very into the what's the word for it?
It's like herbalism.
She was reading all of the like historic understanding of childbirth and
the way they dressed and everything.
She thought they should have a birthing stool, so that side of it was very much true to life.
This is the most accurate to the show.
I think so. They were both dressed in like these black cloaks, very old fashioned for the times. They had this husband, Sid, who was technically one of their husbands.
But didn't you also feel terrible for Sid when they described him in this chapter?
Yeah, but at the same time, he's agreed to that like he didn't have to.
I don't know. Did he agree to it, or did he just get coerced into it like they do everything else?
The difference to the show was in the show they were very much against any medical, like they were very much against the Nanatans in the show.
Yeah. And they were
they are here.
Too. Yeah.
Well, no, they're not, because they're very much against, I don't want to say medical professionals, because obviously the midwives and the sisters are medical professionals, but they trust the Nanatans, whereas they don't. The minute there's any mention of a hospital,
Bex, you're being a bit generous by saying they trust the Nanatans. I mean, they were like Meg or Maeve, whichever one wasn't pregnant, punched Sister Brenda in the face.
Well, no, but I'm saying the story was different in the show to it is in the book.
How though?
Oh, I'm going to have to find it now.
Yeah,
basically, I feel like they spoke to the Nanatans more in the book because they kept saying stuff like the fallopian tubes is crossed, and they're coming to them with problems that weren't actually real. So they kind of came to them making more bother in the book than they did in the show, because in the show they were very much like not wanting any intervention. But then they did obviously have the intervention, and then they had the whole situation with the
here's what as if I haven't been saying what I think this whole time. Okay, here's what actually like was sending me in this one. Now, normally I really do feel that, you know, when it comes to service providers of any kind, that you have to be understanding, you have to be sympathetic, you have to be helpful. Like when we talk about the show, we've blasted a lot of the doctors at the hospitals, like the male doctors at the hospital scenes, because they've been really insensitive, really, you know, like uncaring, like they treat the patients like they're just, you know, like not people, like they just kind of are very, you know, that way. This is one of the cases where I'm just like, these two women are absolute nightmares, and they were driving me absolutely insane the whole time. The thing that did actually make me laugh though about the story was when they had the whole part about fallopian tubes instead of fallopian tubes, and they were like, the fallopian tubes are crossed. There's no way fallopian tubes can be crossed, just like biologically, anatomically, there's no way. And then they said some other word, medical. Oh, this, I underlined this, Wellicose Wains.
But there's the next bit on the next chapter. On the next chapter, Meg the Gypsy. It's even.
But this is the point I was trying to make. In the show, they don't see the Nanatans until she's going to give birth.
Okay, yes, that's true.
Yeah. No, I was with you there.
Yeah, in this show, this isn't a show. In this book, she gets care throughout a pregnancy.
Yeah, but they're creating problems, aren't they? They're really like.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying they're even patient. Also, I felt in the show it was very much that Sid was Meg's husband.
Yeah. In
this book, I don't know what the situation was.
Well, the way that they talk about poor Sid is basically that he's like just their, I mean, I don't mean to use this word like too hyperbolically, but he sounds kind of like their slave, basically. Like they do whatever they want with him 24/7. You know what I mean? Like if they don't want to do stuff, I mean, like he just kind of like, I mean, I'm not usually one to like be like the, you know, oh, defend the men or whatever, but it's like he was a wisp of a cockney, like always seen at the market carrying boxes of apples and pears, cabbages and turnips. Like he never laughed or joked, never went for a drink, never joined in when dirty yarns were being spun. He could never see the funny side of life. He never even smiled. He just doggedly carried on. This is a terrible way to put this, but humping the boxes and crates, his thin frame sometimes trembling under the weight, his cap pulled well down over his eyes and his lips fixed in a tight, straight line. He spoke to no one, and no one spoke to him. When the market was over, he vanished.
Sounds like,
I was like,
to be honest, it sounds like they've actually brought some joy to his life.
It sounds terrible. It sounds like they just like own him. Like he just, Oh, I don't know, man. I was like, this is
Well,
horrible.
in the next chapter, in the Meg the Gypsy, on page 86,
Yeah.
it says about when the phone rang when she goes into labour.
Yeah.
And it's Trixie who slept in. Now, I thought this was the storyline, you know, when Trixie got really drunk,
Yeah.
didn't hear the phone, but
Oh,
obviously,
yeah.
so, but obviously it wasn't booze. She was just really tired. But then she did eventually get it. And then because in the actual show, it's Trixie, Sister Bernadette, and the doctor. And this is exactly who was there in the show.
Well, and I will
in the
say,
book.
like, in this book's, like, Chummy was first on, but then she had to go out, and so then Trixie got, like, she was the next one in line.
Yeah.
And I think she just wasn't prepared to do that, so I think she just didn't kind of totally, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Oh, but then isn't this the scene where she goes and but wait, this actually did make me laugh. One of the times they go, Trixie gets really mad at her because she's not in labor, she's just farting.
Yeah, she's constipated because she had gooseberry pie and custard.
Yeah, she just ate a bunch of food that's like made her real backed up, and so she basically hasn't been able to poop, and so she's just like farting loads and loads and loads, but it's causing stomach cramps, and so they think that she's in labor, and then she's like, "You got me out of bed because you're farting? Like, how dare you? If you ever do this again, I'm gonna come back here and like, you know, da da da." She's like, the girl who cried wolf, like, no one's gonna help you when it's really time.
But also, they just sound like nightmares. They're like, this is negligence. This is.
I know. Well, they're constantly just like even when they're getting help, they're just so mean about it. They're so terrible about it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, this is what Trixie says to them when she's there for the fart call. She says, "Well, that's the trouble then. You've got gut ache. You're not in labor at all, you old fraud. Getting me out of bed for a stomach ache? Do you realize I've been working for 40 hours with no sleep and you wake me up for nothing? I will give you some castor oil and an enema, and then I'm going back to my bed and leaving you to get on with it." Oh God, wouldn't it be great to just? I'm like, you could never say that now.
I never want to say that I'm going to give someone an enema, to be fair.
Well, no, I never either, but like she's just like, I'm so over it. So then they get a call again, and Trixie just happens to be the unlucky one that's on call.
Yeah.
And they have to go. But this time it's real, at least. So
also, she was 38 as well, which is very old for those
times. I know.
But
so
also
talk about the birth, yeah.
So who is it? Meg. Meg's the one who's not giving birth. And Meg is saying how she thinks the baby's going to die. She keeps saying she's seen it. I've seen it. The baby's going to die. And it's
terrible.
Just really dark.
She's read the tea leaves, hasn't she, when Maeve's had a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Between babies.
Which is obviously, foolproof. So she basically has a baby girl and she'll die. I see it all. Don't talk like that, says Sister Bernadette, very angry. Worms and coffins. I see it in the cards. Oh, do you know, I hate the V rather than the. I just hate it.
I hate reading Cockney rhyming slang.
Same.
Oh, I had to listen to it because I did the audiobook again because it was just really annoying.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
So anyway, Mavis is just absolutely fine while Meg's harbouring all this danger. She's going on about harbinger of doom. But Meg is just there shouting about the baby dying and stuff, and Maven's just like la 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 la, just cuddling a baby in a state of exhausted euphoria.
Yeah, exactly.
So then the cord was clamped and cut, and then basically find out it's a twin.
Well, they're trying to deliver the placenta, and it's like not working. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. And by the way, this is when they talk about the fundus again, which I'm like, oh Lord, I still don't totally understand what the fundus is, but I don't really want to know.
I don't know.
Oh wait, there's a glossary at the back.
I know. And I saw that right at the end, and I was like,
the top of the uterus.
No, thank you.
Well, this was the first one in the glossary. This is the first one after birth. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna skip. I
couldn't read the glossary. I don't know. No surprise to you.
I didn't read the glossary. I was like, I can have without knowing the definition of all these.
Well, they got the flying squad, so they got the helicopters and they came in. So basically just exactly like in the show. They got the flying squad in. It was Sister Bernadette. Megan was screaming because Sister Bernadette tried to turn the baby.
Can I just say though? Well, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you. If that's okay.
Go for it.
So here's the thing that actually did legitimately annoy me about this chapter, the Meg the Gypsy Path chapter. Oh no, wait, it's Maeve the mother. Maeve the mother. Yeah. So they figured out that the first baby was a twin. So they're like, we've got another baby in there. We've got to get her out because the placenta's not delivering or whatever else. But the thing is, the second baby isn't presenting as like ready to come out. So it's like, oh, what are we doing? Huh?
Was it ours first?
Something like that. Yeah. So Trixie's there, and Trixie's a good midwife, but she's, whatever. She's Trixie, right? So Sister Bernadette and they just say the doctor. They don't really say Dr. Turner, but let's just assume Dr. Turner. Okay. So it's like, okay, like she's like, there's been no contraction since the birth of the first baby. If the fetus is lying transversely, this will help me. I must make sure, blah, blah, blah. So then it's like, oh, what should we do? And the doctors, it's like the fetal heart rate is too high. Like I have to turn the baby. Like, what are we going to do? The fetus is flexing, like, blah, 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 and everything. And then they're like, oh, 25 minutes have passed since the birth of the first baby with no contraction. The fetal heart rate is going up. We cannot allow this to go beyond 30 minutes. It's like, okay, time is of the essence. And then Sister Bernadette goes, why do I say that, nurse? And she turns to Trixie. Trixie was startled by the sudden question. She hadn't a clue. She mumbled something about the mother needs to rest. Nonsense. Okay, this begins pages of this, where Sister Bernadette is like, Trixie, what about this? Trixie, what about this? Like giving her like a quiz. I'm like, Sister Bernadette, stop it. Like literally they waste like a half an hour with Sister Bernadette berating Trixie for not knowing the answers to the questions she's asking her. And then they're like, oh, this is getting more and more dire straits. Well, stop trying to have like an educational lesson and just deliver the freaking baby. Like Trixie was so caught off guard the whole time. It's like, okay, maybe she should have known it. Maybe you can like rip her a new one when you get back to the convent. But like, can you just get on with it at this point? Like it was really, really annoying me. And then it was just like, well, what about breastfeeding? And like, even after the baby finally came out, and like, they were like, well, how should we deliver the baby? And Trixie's like, I don't know, forceps? She's like, we would never use forceps. And it just was going on. And it was like, it was so
why would put the baby to the breast? Pituitary. Yes. Like, she's just shouting out the whole time.
Oh my God. And then they finally are like, you know what? You just go out and call the flying squad. Like, and she's just like, okay, great. Thank God I get to leave this room of like hell, basically. And so she goes out. It looks like she's literally been in a war. That's how Jennifer Worth described it. Like they're all covered in blood. Like the flying squad come in. It literally looks like a battle scene. Like there's just blood everywhere. Like it's terrible. And then the flying squad guy comes in and he's like, this is great. Like, Oh, this is also, well, sorry, this is absolutely so disgusting, and I apologize, Al. But basically, the doctor says, the placenta's coming. Quick, nurse, fetch a kidney dish. Trixie tried to get one, but her legs were shaking and she couldn't move. The placenta slid out onto the floor. We'll examine it later, said the doctor, pushing it aside with his foot. First, I must control the hemorrhage. You guys, that's the book in a nutshell, okay? Like, just kick the placenta over to the side while the blood is gushing out.
Well, also, let's not forget that Sister Bernadette was punched in the face, just like in the show. Yeah. So they did portray that well.
Yeah.
And she was quite hard as well. But to be fair, she probably deserved it because she was horrible. I'm surprised she didn't get a second one from Trixie.
Yeah, it was terrible. And then the flying squad gets there and it's like, oh my God, wow, like you did an amazing job. And the doctor's like, thank you. Like we did everything we could. And then Megan Maeve
and the doctor, it was really Sister Bernadette who did it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
And the doctor swoops in to take the praise.
I know. Yeah. Well then, yeah, so it says something in circumstances like these, undiagnosed twins, a transverse lie, premature separation of placenta and hemorrhage could spell certain death. You've done really well, old chap. Thanks, said the doctor wearily. He seemed to be in a state of exhaustion. We do our best. Now this is what Meg says. You done your best. You wants locking up, I say. If you done like what I said and put her on a birthing stool in the first place, we would have. This would never have happened. I'm not going to do the whole accent like I usually try to do. But anyways, and then the consultant looked at Meg in astonishment, and then the doctor goes, "Take no notice. We've had this the whole time. Nothing will convince her." And it's just like, wow, we did all of this for absolutely nothing because you're such an ungrateful jerk, basically.
The only good thing is, because she was 38, she probably wasn't going to
have any more.
Have another war. Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like she did, because we did have an update.
Say what happens.
30 years later, Jenny Lee, or Jennifer Worth, was visiting Trixie, who'd recently moved to Basildon in Essex, and they went shopping, pulled at the market, and who should be out selling fruit but only Megan Maeve? But it wasn't the original Megan Maeve. Oh no, it was 30 years old Megan Maeve, dressed in the same drab brown dresses, leather belts at the waist, men's boots, and tight headscarves pulled down low over their forehead.
And they sound just as rude as the original Megan Maeve.
Yeah. It was just 2.0 basically.
Yeah, Maeve's our mum and Meg's our aunt. Do you want to make something of it? No, I didn't. Trixie grinned at me and we slipped quietly away chuckling. Can you imagine that? It'd be like seeing a celebrity.
I was so happy when she said 30 years later I was visiting Trixie, and I was just like, oh, like say more. And then we will get to that in part 2 of this about the book. But so the next chapter is Madonna of the Pavement. Oh, this is terrible.
Oh, isn't it?
This is terrible. So first off, she starts by basically she has like a verbatim excerpt from this article called Madonna of the Pavement, and basically it's this really, really harrowing like written description of an absolutely like, you know, bereft woman who has nothing, and yet she's like holding a newborn in her arms, and he's breastfeeding, and it's described as Madonna of the Pavement, like, you know, a different version of, you know, like a Madonna, a mother and child, you know, like artwork or whatever. And she's like, oh, this is, you know, like like millions of memories and everything. And then she tells the story of the Lacey family, which should we cover in part 1 or should we leave that for part 2?
Should we go to part 2? Should we say our goodbyes?
Okay, so listen, this is a teaser. We'll cover Lacey's and the rest of the book in part 2. I was going to say we promise it gets better. It doesn't really. It will eventually.
It does at the very end.
It will at the very end, but yeah.
Thank you so much for listening if you still are, because we really don't want to be doing this. So
I'm still here, despite you might have forgotten.
If you made it with us, like, God bless, honestly.
Like, subscribe, follow us online, send us messages, but also come back for part 2 that, spoiler alert, we're going to record right now. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.